heard.
Simply put, Preckwinkle, Daley, and Chico, they want to take away a fresh voice from Chicago voters.
Candidates for Chicago mayor take aim, trying to knock each other off the ballot.
I want a kinder and gentler nation, like 1,000 points of light in a broad and peaceful sky.
As the body of President George H.W. Bush is brought to Washington, a Chicagoan remembers Bush's life and legacy.
It's just a remarkable state, and people are still discovering the state.
And today is Illinois' 200th birthday. We celebrate with a look at some of the state's many remarkable people, places, and things. All that and more next on Chicago Tonight. Thanks for joining us. I'm Brandis Friedman. Upheaval in Chicago's charter school network. Amanda Vinicky has that story and more of what's making news in Chicago tonight. Amanda.
Chicago Public Schools wants to close 2 of the city's charter schools, Kwame Nkrumah in the Southside Roseland community and Urban Prep West on the near west side, both at the end of the school year. CPS CEO Janice Jackson says both schools failed to provide students with a quality education. CPS leaders are also recommending the Board of Education not approve proposals for 3 new charter schools. The board votes Wednesday. Charters are privately run but publicly funded. A state board has the final say over the school's futures. Meanwhile, we'll soon learn whether Chicago will be the site of the nation's first ever charter school strike. Acero, which used to be known as UNO, runs 15 charter schools in Chicago. Unless something changes overnight, several hundred teachers from the charter school network could be on the picket line early tomorrow morning. In other CPS news, the district cannot move forward with plans to close National Teachers Academy, an elementary school on the southwest side. A Cook County judge says the school must stay open during a court battle brought on by parents and activists who claim efforts to close the high-performing, primarily black school violate the State Civil Rights Act. Chicago's Tribune Media has a new buyer. Texas-based Nexstar Media Group is offering $4 billion. Tribune Media operates 42 local TV stations, plus the WGN national network. The deal would make Nexstar the largest local TV station operator in the country. Federal regulators still have to give approval. The FCC had concerns with a previous buyout offer from conservative-leaning Sinclair Media. The Tribune called off that deal in August. The Chicago Bulls have fired head coach Fred Hoiberg. In a statement, Vice President of Basketball Operations John Paxson says it's the right choice for the organization, calling it imperative that the team build habits to put players in the best position both now and into the future. Hoiberg has led the Bulls since mid-2015 after 5 seasons coaching at Iowa State. Associate coach Jim Boylan, who's also been with the team since 2015, will take over head coach duties. And a happy Hanukkah to those of you celebrating on this second night of the holiday. As for the weather, there's a small chance of some snow overnight with a low of 26. Then tomorrow it should be mostly cloudy with a high of about 31. And don't forget, you can get Chicago Tonight streamed on Facebook, YouTube, and our website, WTTW.com/news. You can also watch via podcast and the PBS video app. And now, Brandis, back to you.
Amanda, thank you. Candidates for Chicago mayor have now officially entered the rough and tumble part of the contest. Today, multiple campaigns filed objections to their opponents trying to knock them off the ballot. One of the candidates facing the most heat is Illinois Comptroller Susana Mendoza, who says other campaigns are trying to silence her voice. Paris Schutz, he has the latest from the Chicago Board of Elections. Paris.
Brandis, a lot of these objections came in just under the 5 p.m. deadline here at the Chicago Board of Elections, where some mayoral campaigns believe some of their opponents do not actually have the required 12,500 valid signatures to get on the ballot. Now let's take a look at some of the folks that are going to be facing petition challenges. They are Dorothy Brown. She's facing a challenge from Tony Preckwinkle and Willie Wilson. Bill Daley being challenged by Paul Vallis. LaShawn Ford also challenged by Willie Wilson. Jamal Green challenged by Willie Wilson. Lori Lightfoot challenged by Tony Preckwinkle. Gary McCarthy challenged by Paul Vallis. Susana Mendoza challenged by Tony Preckwinkle. And Neil Salas Griffin challenged by Tony Preckwinkle. So Preckwinkle and Wilson very active here. And Bill Daley got a last-minute challenge from Jerry Joyce, a little-known candidate from the South Side. Now, that means some of the candidates are escaping challenge, and barring some kind of catastrophe, they will get on the ballot. And those are Gary Chico, Bob Fioretti, Amara Enya, Jerry Joyce, Tony Preckwinkle, she will not get a challenge from anybody, and Paul Vallis, and also Willie Wilson. And joining me now is Jim Allen of the Chicago Board of Elections. Jim, what are the next steps now that these objections have been filed?
Well, good evening, Paris. The next step is going to be service by the Sheriff's Department as well as certified mail to all the candidates who are impacted by any kind of objection. And then the hearings on each objection will all launch on December 10th, next Monday.
And how long is this all going to take? Because early voting starts January 17th.
Technically, it starts on the 17th, 40 days before Election Day. But realistically, it's probably not going to start on time. Depending on the nature of the challenge, the objection may take a week or two, or it can take 6-7 weeks. And then the loser in either side, whether it's the objector or the candidate, can take the matter to court.
We also have aldermanic challenges, so people running for alderman challenging some of their opponents. How many challenge cases are there in all when you take into account all of these races?
A little more than 150. So with the challenges at the city clerk, mayor, and city treasurer level, you're looking at a little more than 190 objections. That's a typical year. We had, even though we had a super high number of candidates for mayor and other citywide offices, we had a rather normal amount of candidates for aldermanic offices. So.
All right, Jim Allen, you have your work cut out for you over the next few months. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paris.
All right, and so one of those candidates facing a challenge, notably, is Susana Mendoza. She turned in about twice the number of required signatures, but Tony Preckwinkle's campaign, who poured through every one of those signatures, say they believe there were enough forgeries or invalid addresses or non-registered voters on those petitions to knock her under that 12,500 signature threshold. So Mendoza right now is on vacation in Florida, but representatives of her campaign say that these other campaigns are conspiring to try and kick her off the ballot.
They aren't doing this to protect the rule of law. They're doing this not for good democracy. They're banding together to throw Susana off the ballot because it's the only way that they can stop her, and it's the only way they can maintain their hold on power and the status quo.
Now, Tony Preckwinkle is behind this challenge and a couple other challenges. She was sworn in today for another term as Cook County Board President. In addition to running for mayor, she did not take questions. And an interesting wrinkle at today's county board meeting, Bill Daley was in attendance for her speech. He was there to support his brother, John Daley, who is being sworn in for another term as Cook County Commissioner. Now, Preckwinkle, as it regards to these challenges that she's filing, she sent a statement out saying, quote, "Everyone needs to follow the same rules to get on the ballot. We understand this is a daunting process for candidates, but it is the first test that every mayoral campaign must pass." And Bill Daley brought up the fact that Mendoza herself has challenged other candidates in past races, so he believes it's a little bit ironic that she is crying foul today.
This is the law. When you're running for office, you follow the law. And as I said, Comptroller Mendoza has taken advantage of the law and thrown other people off the ballot in other races. So it's a little disingenuous and not honest with people to have some sense of outrage when it's the system and the process of which she has taken advantage of, which I assume she would say was the appropriate thing when she did that.
So we asked Mendoza's representatives today repeatedly, isn't it a little bit hypocritical that you are crying foul today when you have employed this tactic to get other people off the ballot in past races? They did not answer our questions. They just said, we are looking at this race right now. They believe Susana Mendoza is being challenged because they believe she is the front runner. They say they have polls citing that she is the front runner. So this is going to be a very, very busy process. And of course, it could go all the way to the Cook County courts if the candidates don't like the result here at the Chicago Board of Elections. And that means lots of money, campaign money, spent on litigating all this. A lot to do in a very short period of time. And we're live from the Chicago Board of Elections. Brandis, back to you.
Lots to follow, Paris. Thank you. And now to Carol Marine and remembering the 41st President of the United States. Carol.
The body of George Herbert Walker Bush was flown to the Capitol on Air Force One today. Bush, who guided the United States through the collapse and breakup of the Soviet Union and who marshaled a multi-nation coalition to repulse the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait, died Friday at the age of 94. His death comes just 8 months after that of his beloved wife of 73 years, Barbara. Bush's body will lie in state through Wednesday in Washington and then will be buried Thursday at his presidential library in College Station, Texas. Here to talk about President Bush's life and legacy is Samuel Skinner. Mr. Skinner served as Chief of Staff to President Bush in 1991 and 1992. Prior to that, spent nearly 3 years in his cabinet as Secretary of Transportation. Skinner is a Chicagoan, a former U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Illinois. Welcome to Chicago tonight.
Thank you, Carol. Nice to be here.
So at just before 4 o'clock this afternoon, President Bush's body was brought to the Capitol. There wasn't a dry eye here. What about you?
Oh, I've been holding it, a little bit tearing a little bit earlier when I talked about him to somebody. But it's really, we're celebrating a great life, a great career, and a great message for America and the world. So I'm kind of approaching it with what a legacy he left, and everybody will now learn more about it, and hopefully will act in his stead.
His son, President Bush, as I was looking at the camera shot of him, was doing all he could to keep a stiff upper lip. But that sort of is the Bush way of doing things, isn't it?
Well, it is. You don't really see a lot of emotion get carried, but you do on occasion. We did, of course, when I was working with them directly. But that doesn't mean they don't care. They're the most caring family and the most caring people you could ever be around. And, of course, the patriarch of all that care is George Herbert Walker Bush.
When was the last time you saw him, Sam?
I saw him this summer at Kennebunkport. We had lunch together, and we talked about old times and stories, and it was very fortunate because along at lunch with us was the local reverend from the Episcopal Church who was giving him communion, and he asked me how I met President Bush, and he was sitting next to me, and I was able to answer his questions and relive our relationship of over 38 years and watch the president nod and ask us to tell another story, and I just had a chance to kind of express my gratitude through his minister to him as he was listening about what he meant to me and what he's meant to the world.
He was having trouble even then being able to be verbal?
Well, he was taking it all in, and he didn't express himself in the detail that he used to be because of the Parkinson's, but he was getting it all. And then every once in a while he'd say, tell that story again. So a couple of good stories. He said, make sure you tell that story again. I want to hear it again.
So what's your best story, Sam?
Oh, there's so many good ones. I guess I'll tell you one that I thought of as the plane came in this afternoon and as it left Houston this morning. I was on Air Force One with him a number of times, but the one I think about that talks about him in the person is I was Secretary of Transportation. I had a speech to give in Florida. He was flying down to Florida at Homestead Air Force Base with some buddies of his to go fishing for the weekend, so I hooked a ride on Air Force One. I sat in the back of the airplane because it was his trip with his friends. And he saw me in the back, and he came back and said, Sam, what are you doing here? And I said, well, I'm saving the government $200 and flying on Air Force One. And he said, I get it. And he said, what do you need when you get there? I said, Mr. President, somebody's going to pick me up. I'm going to give a speech at a little bit south of Miami. He said, are you sure you don't need anything? He came back another time and said, are you sure you don't need anything? Then when he was getting off the airplane with his buddies to go fishing, he came back on the airplane, found me again and said, are you sure you don't need anything? That's one story. He's always thinking of someone else. But I guess the one everybody likes the most is when the first time we went to Kennebunkport, and we had dinner that night at Walker's Point, and he said, "Do you want to play golf in the morning?" And I said, "Oh," he said, "No. Can you get up in the morning to play golf with the president?" I said, "Yes, sir, I can get up to play golf with the president." He said, "Well, we have to tee off at 7 because we have to be at the memorial service at 11. And he said, "How do you know you'll get up?" And I said, "Well, I can get up to play with the president." He said, "Are you sure?" And I said, "No, I'm pretty sure." And he said, "Well, let's go find an alarm clock." So we went back into his bedroom, and he found an alarm clock, which we weren't sure worked or not. And we took it. It was battery powered, and I took it to the cabin next door. And 1 minute of 6 the next morning, I got up to go to the bathroom and get up to get ready to go, and I hear a knock on the door. Open the door, and there's a man with a robe that says President of the United States, so I knew it was him. And he said, "I thought you might need some coffee."
Your wake-up call is ready.
Yeah, my wake-up call is ready. And those stories like that, everybody's got them. He was always thinking of someone else. And then the third one I guess I talk about is when I saw him in action as a world leader. We went up to the UN in 1992. He met with 20, either heads of state or heads of government, one-on-one, and I had the opportunity to watch and participate and watch how much respect he had from all of them, and how he had the dialogue and the ability to communicate from all parts of the world, and they changed the setting depending on which tea they needed and what they wanted. But the leaders of the world were all there, and they all were looking up to him as something special. So the world recognizes it too.
The commentators today were talking about, on holidays, the Bushes made it a point to stay in Thanksgiving, Christmas, because they were so concerned Secret Service and the staff of wherever they weren't going to be able to see their families. Did you experience some of that sort of family consideration?
Oh, he always was considering others. His relationship with U.S. Secret Service, which of course protected him for 38 years, was so special because he was always thinking of the agents. And when they lost one in Oklahoma City in the bombing, he was really all in with the family and doing everything he could. He was on top of, they had a relationship that was very, very special. And the military, the staff, it was everybody had it. And he loved being with people. He loved being with people across all walks of life. So it's very unique. He never in this exalted position of president, never took advantage of that. He always tried to help them.
You know an awful lot about Washington protocol, having been Chief of Staff and so many other things. I'm wondering, what do you think it was that happened? Because Donald Trump was really not welcome at Barbara Bush's funeral, didn't go to John McCain's, but he will be with his family at President Bush's funeral. Is that a clear directive from the late president?
Not surprised at all. This man had no grudges, bore no ill will to anybody. He was always looking to be inclusive. He had friends across the aisle, Republicans, Democrats, from all philosophies. Everybody he came in touch with, felt touched by him. And he respected the presidency so much, Carol, that he would never want have a spectacle of a sitting president not be at his services, because in doing so, he honors the office. And I think President Trump, I'm sure will honor tomorrow or Wednesday that ceremony and that service, because it's so special. But that's because he's a special person. We need more of those people like are right now in government.
And do you think when the funeral's over and the eulogies have all been said that we go back to our politics as usual?
I think it's going to be hard to go back to where we were in those days. President Bush had grown up in politics in Texas. Republicans and Democrats were his friends. He served in Congress with them. He had dinner with them. There was civility across the board, and I think we've lost that. They started to lose that probably in '92, and we've really never recovered it fully. It'll take another President Bush probably to bring it together, and it'll take some willpower. But right now, we're divided because we're really fighting for the soul of the country. And then I think the Republicans and Democrats were fighting for the soul of the country, but in a different way, working on the Americans for Disability Act, something you're familiar with, and to what he did on that, and would change the life of people. People say, "Do you tear?" I said, when I tear is when I go into a restroom or I go into a building and I see it's accessible, and that I know that President Bush, on his own, wanted that done and got it done with Republicans and Democrats, and that legacy means that everybody's got a higher quality of life.
I know you and Honey are jumping on a plane to go to the National Cathedral
We'll be there on Wednesday, and we're going to celebrate his life, and there'll be some tears and some emotion, but I had the opportunity to work with him for 38 years, so a lot of memories, and I'm thinking those are really great memories. But I want to just finish with this, that he set a role model. You know, he gave back and took care of everybody else, and if you were around him, that's the kind of message you carried being around him. So I hope that Americans will look at it, as I have, I hope, in my life, lived in his steps, walked in his footsteps, saw what he did, and understand you can make a difference by taking care of others.
Safe travels, Sam.
Thank you very much,
for
nice to see
being
you.
with
Thank
us. More on Chicago tonight, just ahead. Stay with us.
Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by the City Club of Chicago.
Smart people may disagree about what makes a great city, but part of what makes Chicago great is that we don't have to agree. To run a city like ours, a lot of issues come up. The City Club of Chicago is a place to debate those issues and hear from the men and women who shape the policies, lead the industries, and tell the stories that define our city. For the free and open exchange of ideas, the City Club of Chicago.
At this hour, the official celebration of Illinois' bicentennial is getting underway at Navy Pier, with state officials and a number of celebrities slated to join the party. It was on this date in 1818 that Congress approved the Constitution of Illinois, which at the time was at the western edge of the growing United States. And despite whatever problems the state currently faces, there are a lot of reasons to celebrate. Eddie Aruza tells us what some of those reasons are.
From its majestic rivers to its great lake, from the architecture that reaches for the sky to its vast prairies with their fertile land, there really is no other state like Illinois.
It's just a remarkable state, and people are still discovering the city and the state, and it's a great place to discover history and to learn a lot about the American culture right here in Illinois.
Over the last 200 years, Illinois has had its share of tragedies and triumphs, hoodlums and heroes, ugly times and good times. And while the state still faces many challenges as it reaches its bicentennial, some state officials say there are many reasons to cheer about Illinois.
The state gets a bad rap. We have a lot of great things happening in our state, and this has been a great year to celebrate those successes.
To celebrate the state's 200th, the Illinois Office of Tourism has created a number of new videos showcasing the state from border to border. Among the many features that make the state great are its natural gems, such as Starved Rock State Park and the Shawnee National Forest. There are many historic towns in Illinois, including Elsa on the banks of the Mississippi River just north of St. Louis. And while Route 66 has been replaced by modern highways, some of the actual roadway still exists, as do a number of the features that made it famous.
We have more sites and attractions along the route on the 300-mile stretch in Illinois than any other state in the country.
Illinois was officially born on December 3, 1818, when it became the 21st state in the Union. At the time, the state had around 35,000 residents, including 900 slaves. Almost all of the population was concentrated in the southern part of the state. An 1818 map also shows a large swath of western Illinois that was set aside for veterans of the 1812 war.
They could claim a portion of land in that section of Illinois and have essentially a farm there for free from the U.S. government.
At that time, a 9-year-old boy named Abraham Lincoln was growing up in neighboring Indiana. But in the decades ahead, he would become the most famous Illinoisan of the 19th century. He, of course, remains a towering figure in the 21st century. By the time the state celebrated its centennial in 1918, the population had exploded to more than 6 million people. But as organizers planned 100th birthday celebrations, they faced a dilemma with World War I raging.
Everybody was very concerned that they not be seen as sort of partying while servicemen are dying. As it turned out, the actual centennial in December wasn't celebrated until the war actually had just ended, so it was a perfect time to have a big party.
And party they did, with dozens of events, including pageants called masks, where lovely ladies dressed in allegorical costumes formed living tableaux. Illinois continued growing in size and importance throughout the 20th century, catapulted in part by a list of luminaries both famous and infamous, born in the state or who secured their reputations here. Frank Lloyd Wright was born in Wisconsin, but his fame is forever associated with Illinois, and the state's most famous architect also remains one of Illinois' biggest tourist draws.
We created a Frank Lloyd Wright Trail this past year, and it's just been a hit with visitors. It's really connecting visitors outside of Chicago to Oak Park and then other parts of the state.
Over its first 200 years, the state has amassed a long list of notable artists, scientists, thinkers, entrepreneurs, and inventors, civic, labor, and social pioneers. The state also has a culinary reputation, from groundbreaking cuisine to its famous hot dogs. And there's one more thing to be proud of, credited to the famous socialite Bertha Palmer. Legend has it she was the driving force behind the brownie, invented as a suitable dessert for ladies attending the Columbian Exposition in 1893.
What an invention that really everybody loves.
Illinois, come for its world-class history, attractions, and commerce, and have a brownie. Happy birthday, Illinois. For Chicago Tonight, I'm Eddie Aruza.
And if you'd like to see some of the videos the state created for the bicentennial, you can find the link on our website. And that's our show for this Monday night, abbreviated to bring you special pledge programming. Don't forget to stay connected with us by signing up for our daily briefing and join us tomorrow night live at 7. The prosecution is set to rest in the trial against Chicago police officers accused of covering up the Laquan McDonald shooting. And Chicago citizens on display in a new show by a London-born photographer. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight, I'm Brandis Friedman. Thank you for watching. Good night.
Closed captioning for this program is brought to you by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices. Bob Clifford is on the board of overseers of the Rand Institute for Civil Justice, a think tank in California.